So hello everyone, welcome to the ReThinking Lab. For the next 90 minutes, Seamus and I have put a lot of effort into designing an experience for all of us to challenge our current way of thinking. I know curiosity probably have brought you here. You might be wondering, why do we need to rethink? I have to say the last year has been really tough with a lot of sacrifices. But if I may make a very strong statement that collectively as a human race, we're not doing a great job. Political polarization is worse than ever before, and every day I see organized hate crime being, happening around the globe, and there are lots of people spreading fake news about COVID, and we're still struggling to use science to guide our thinking, and to add to everything to the mix, that there is an increasing concern, because I'm a cyber psychologist, there is an increasing concern of how much we're influenced by technology. Not the, instead of the other way around. But the good news, as a researcher and somebody who have studied science, is that we as individuals have a unique opportunity to decide what kind of role we want to play, what kind of society that we want to live in, and what kind of jobs that we want to create that not only will be irreplaceable by technology, but also will stand the test of time. And more importantly, that we will define how the technology will be used in the future. So Seamus and I want to invite you all to be a rethinker who will remain at the center of all the changes. So how do we get started? We think that we can get started by being aware. So the purpose of this workshop is to get everybody into a state of being aware. Being aware will enable us to pay attention to the way we think, because if we don't pay attention to the way we think, it will hurt us. But if we do, you can play it to your advantage. So this is our agenda for today. We are spending a little bit more extra time on the welcome and introduction to the ReThinking Lab. But then Seamus is going to guide us through a clarity of mind exercise. And the two main parts of today's workshop is the bias of the week and the themed discussion on business after COVID, and then we will wrap it up with takeaways and tools. We purposely designed this workshop to be active and interactive, so there is no judgment on how much we know or how correct our answers might be. This is a transformational learning progress for all of us. And I think the fact that you guys are here and being a part of it, I think you are ahead of the curve. So I'm Jing Reilly, I'm a cyber psychologist, and I help people to improve performance with science, like psychology, behavior science, and neuroscience. I've more than 10 years of marketing experience working for the likes of Kantar, IBM, and Facebook. I've also helped to grow 3 companies that led to a total of a 200 million acquisition. Seamus?
Okay, thanks, Jing, and thanks for the introduction. So, and again, back to the awareness before I introduce myself, just back to the awareness and reinforcing, I guess, something that you mentioned there, Jing, is about awareness is such a critical part of what we're going to discuss today, and we'll build on that as we go through. So my name is Seamus Power. I'm the founder of a company called Powering Health. I spent much of my working life on a kind of autopilot, and again, in the corporate world. I eventually experienced the benefits of making small tweaks and tunes in that very busy modern life that I had kind of autopiloted myself into. And it was through that experience that I made some small tweaks and tunes in my own life, and then which led me on a path to studying psychology and ending up completing a master's in health psychology in 2016, which was the basis for doing what I'm doing now. So I have a real passion for helping people to make those small tweaks and tunes and find out what works for people themselves in their own lives. And that's really what Powering Health is all about as well. And looking forward to working with everyone through this session and through the following sessions.
And thank you, Seamus. There are some housekeeping rules that will help you to get the most out of this workshop. Remember, you are the thinker. We're all thinkers, and everyone's thought and ideas are equally important. And we encourage peer-to-peer learning, and I've benefited hugely from peer-to-peer learning. But I think focusing on the issue, not the person, is the best way. When it comes to peer-to-peer learning. Also, active learning, you're going to find out later on with other activities that active learning, we encourage that you play a more, a very active role in solving the problem. And also, I love debate. I don't know about you guys. Some people might find it's not comfortable, but I think, if you treat the debate like a dance, it's a perfect way to revise your own thinking and do think about 50 Shades of Grey. And I'm even wearing great tops and great necklace. And you might be thinking about the book or the movie, but it's not what I meant. I think that, 50 Shades of Grey is helping us to frame the debate like a complex problem with 50 shades of different grey colors, and nothing is so black and white. Okay, so what is rethinking? I'm just going to stop sharing here for a second so I can actually see everybody. Does everyone drive cars? Mm-hmm. Okay, is there anyone who doesn't? Okay, so before we make any, sorry, this is actually, it's not meant to find out who doesn't drive, who drives. So before we make any maneuver, what do we do?
Check the mirror.
Check the mirrors.
Yes. So in driving lessons, we were taught to identify our visual blind spots with the help of mirrors and sensors, right? But in life, our minds don't come equipped with these tools. So we need to learn to recognize our cognitive blind spots and revise our thinking accordingly. So I know that there is a lot of knowledge on this Zoom call right now. And the curse of knowledge I've learned is that it can sometimes close our minds to things we don't know. The good judgment, this is I used in the video recently, good judgment depends on having the will and the skill to open our mind. So I really want the ReThinking Lab to be that place that we can share the skill and to show our will, that we want to revise our thinking to make better decisions. So let's give it 1 second. So I have a slide here. Now, and I do want to remind all of us that rethinking is not regretting. I don't want people to feel that, I made a mistake and therefore, I shouldn't have done that. It's not about that. It's about instilling humility and cultivating curiosity and be willing to change our mind about something and be humble to something that we don't know. So I strongly believe that rethinking is increasingly important habit. Because, maybe, I see it everywhere, but I could be wrong. And like I totally put my hands up and saying, I could be totally wrong about this. But if I am, at least I'd be quick to rethink again. So if you're still not convinced, here's the list of, the things that I've been looking at. There are lots of people doing rethinking, and there are lots of resources you can go to. BBC has a Rethink podcast I strongly recommend. And there are books about, improving our thinking. That's our trending on Amazon. My personal favorite is Adam Grant, Think Again, and Oza Varro's Think Like a Rocket Scientist. I have it here. It's on my to-read list. And if you haven't heard about Rachel Botsman, she's a leading trust expert. She's my idol. She's changed how I see the world, because trust is really the foundation of everything, whether it's personal or professional. So if you want to just put rethinking into Google, you'd be amazed at what you find. So we're not the only one doing it, but we're definitely ahead of the curve. So next, I'm going to invite Seamus to do a quick breathing exercise that will help to bring clarity to our mind before we continue.
Yeah,
or the actions to follow.
Thanks, Jing. So for me, having clarity of mind, it's a core element of the services I'm currently offering. That from my own experience and from working with clients, it's a great starting point and a foundation for having a clear mind and clarity of thought, which Jing has just explained, I think, is a core component of performing at our best and making the best possible decisions. And as we go into today's sessions around maybe challenging ourselves and our own beliefs and our own perspectives as we get into some of those exercises later on. So we thought it would be a great way of demonstrating the power of slowing down and clarity and gaining clarity of mind through this mechanism of a slowing down, a breathing mechanism, but there may be others that you may find that work for you. So I'll talk a little bit later on as well about the benefits of taking a break or whatever works for you. So a benefit break, I would call it, around whether it's breathing, stretching, walking away, getting time from your desk, going out for a short walk, whatever it may be, as a mechanism to help you gain that clarity of mind. So if you're ready, I'd invite you to just sit in a very comfortable position. We're going to do 2 minutes of heart-focused breathing as a mechanism to gain that clarity of thought as we go into the exercise and into today's session. So if you're comfortable and ready, just roll your shoulders just for a couple of seconds. Maybe just take a few short reset type breaths, and then hands on your lap. No distractions, and feel free to close your eyes if you're comfortable closing your eyes, if it helps you focus. And just take a deeper than normal, slow, comfortable breath. So about 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and don't hold at the inhale or the exhale. So just practice 2 or 3 of those before we go into that 2-minute segment. Okay, so again, I hope you enjoy that. And again, it's something, you might want to practice or practice something else that's a trigger for you to create that calm, because I think, as I said, just having that clarity of mind is a great foundation for help us to perform better and make better decisions, and to really remove some of the clutter that might be going on in our lives from time to time, whether it's work, our personal lives, family lives, whatever. So again, I hope you enjoy that, but it's something we'll come back to again. Thanks, Jing. So what I'd like to invite you to do now, just with that clarity and with the calm and clarity we all have from that exercise, there's just a couple of short brain teasers we'd like to run by you. So the first one is reading this sentence. So we're going to flash this up here for about 10 seconds or so. So I'll just invite you to count the number of F's in this paragraph in the next 10 seconds or so. So just have a quick read. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
How many F's is there that people count? And if you've done this exercise before,
6.
hold on.
6.
Yeah,
6.
well done.
Yeah.
Who has done this exercise before?
Who didn't get 6?
Always forget the O's.
Don't be embarrassed.
I got 3.
Yeah.
I saw 3.
I also got 3.
I got 4.
6. You always miss the OS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, this is just a bit of fun, basically, but it's making a serious point as well behind it all. So you might find that counting the F's, reading from the end of the sentence, enables you to spot more than reading the sentence through as you would normally read it. So the point here is that we tend to skip the word of, and it has a V sound rather than an F sound when searching for the letter F, and demonstrates how we can sometimes miss out on information when it's squarely and facing us and staring us in the face sometimes. So it's just an important point that, our mind and how it works in our brain, it really skips out sometimes information that's there right staring us in the face, but we don't necessarily see it, I guess,
You ready for the next one?
Yeah, the next one. Thanks, Jing. But just a bit of fun as well to get it started. So again, this is a short paragraph I'm going to read. So a man is wearing black, and it's a short riddle. So a man is wearing black. He's got black shoes, socks, trousers, coat, gloves, and a ski mask. He's walking down a back street with all the street lamps off. A black car is coming towards him with its light off, but somehow manages to stop in time. How did the driver manage to see the man? So, any thoughts on that one?
The white of his eyes.
It's daytime.
Yeah.
Daytime.
My father told me this when I was a kid.
So who didn't spot that it was daytime? Were you trying to figure out how he could have stopped? Anyone who didn't realize it was daytime? So again, in this example, we're designed to develop a picture based on information presented very quickly, and using sharp mental shortcuts, heuristics, we sometimes result in making inaccurate assumptions. So again, there's lots of language in there about blackness and darkness and so on. And we kind of build this mental picture up very, very quickly. And again, we can't separate the wood from the trees sometimes in these perceptions of the language that's sometimes used and the image we build up in our mind around that paragraph and that story. And again, it's just another simple example of how the information that we read and the picture we build may not always result in giving us the full information of the full pictures. Again, we're going to delve into this in a bit more detail later on around the value of perspectives and understanding what we see isn't always actually what we perceive in our minds as well. And sometimes opening up our minds and seeing the true picture there is a very important, I guess, rethinking skill that we want to get people thinking about during the session today as well. So thanks for joining in that bit of fun.
We're going to continue to do some fun exercises, and don't overthink, because there is no right or wrong, and let's be as honest as we can. I have a quick question. Is anyone familiar with astrology on this call?
Not really.
Not really.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
Horoscopes. I'm for
Supposed to ask you the question.
When you say horoscopes and astrology, yeah, I have an interest, but maybe not a strong belief,
Okay. Can I have who would like to volunteer to read something on the screen? It's very short.
I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead.
You are feeling creative and ready to get a number of things done. However, a very real fear of what others will think and say may be holding you back. You need to realize that assuming the right attitude is half the battle on your journey to victory. Paradoxically, even though you feel creative and energetic, you could benefit from having more confidence in yourself.
Right. I'm going to give you just a few more seconds to take this message in. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Right. Stop sharing. Now, how many of you think, sorry, how do you say your name? It's
Maeve.
Irish, I think. Maeve. Okay. How many of you think Maeve just read your horoscope? Thank you, Alexandra. How many of you are sure this is not a horoscope? Okay. Whose horoscope is Gemini? It's May 21st.
Not a fix.
June
It's not a
20th.
fix.
May 23rd.
Yeah. May 22nd.
Right, a lot of you didn't put your hands up, so I understand that, sometimes you connect, with certain elements, but not necessarily all of it. And what this exercise is designed to do is to kind of tell us that we have a bias that allows us to pay attention to things that matter to us and ignore the things that don't. So, what was I going to say? So people who work in astrology know this, so they write something up like this that's just generic enough for you to relate. So does anyone know what's the name of the bias that I'm talking about? Do I know?
Is it unconscious bias?
It's a type of unconscious bias.
Affirmation bias or confirmation bias?
Like suggestion bias or something.
It's confirmation bias. Well done, Maeve. So confirmation bias is our tendency to seek out information to support something that we already believe. It's very natural to do that. I think all of us will have confirmation bias. I know I'm not supposed to speak for everybody, but the research has shown that confirmation bias is very common. It's something that, let's say that we think something is true and we want to believe it's true. So we look at 100 things and then we see 3 things that are true. And then we say, look, I'm right. And it happens a lot, when I'm arguing or debating with my friends over certain things, So I guess it is just a flaw. There's nothing to feel bad about it. It's just a flaw in our reasoning, and it happens to all of us, and it happens all the time.
So confirmation bias is an operation in our subconscious all the time. Where we're learning and researching something, for example, it's all too easy to search until we find the piece of information that supports our own biases. to support their own argument. And, you know, it's very helpful in helping us defend a position, I guess. And defending position, this is something we'll talk about quite soon. And defending a position is so easy for us all to do, because we feel we've got to protect our face, to protect our reputation. And based on our own experiences, we feel that this is, you know, the right thing to do. But as we'll see shortly, sometimes developing the skills to look at the bigger picture is equally important for us to do as well. So if you want to jump on to the next one, Jing, you know, in our day-to-day conversations, for example, and how we communicate, we cannot but help hold a position, you know, based on our own experiences, based on, you know, what we've learned on our own journeys around what we think is right, what we think is wrong. It comes back to our values and so on as well, of, you know, deeply ingrained within us around our views that show up in every conversation we have almost. So shifting from our view and looking at the bigger picture is a real challenge for many of us. And I think that's a core element of overcoming, let's say, confirmation bias, and challenging ourselves to really review and critique our own thinking is a core part of what we want to trigger, I guess, in today's conversation. So it's really, some of us feel that we can't but defend a position without losing face, for example. So I think this is really important, to get that balance point between protecting and defending a position that is valuable and that is valuable and important to us, but at the same time being prepared to see another person's perspective, another point of view. And again, we'll come back and reinforce this point right through the session today as well. And just on the next one, Jing. Even our political views. So this is, you know, very much back to maybe the media that we choose or opt to select around confirming our own biases as well. So I know in the old media, let's say pre social media days, the newspapers were one of our core sources of information, and we've got a balanced view based on the journalists, based on their views of a particular newspaper, whether it's the Times, you know, the Independent, whatever paper you select, you generally got a balanced view of different perspectives. But in the modern world, we're very polarized and easily polarized towards our views being confirmed by particular news channels that we might opt and prefer to view, because they coincide or reinforce our own views of the world, and I think they influence each other. So if we're going to view Fox or view CNN, we automatically begin to take the views maybe of those channels that are biased in how they're presenting specific views of how the world works and how the world is operating. So again, very much in our face in this very modern, busy world of polarized media views that really sit well with confirming our own biases as well. And finally, I guess really it's around the brain teaser we did earlier. So we sometimes fill in the gaps based on the perception of what actually has been presented to us. So like the brain teasers, we got a view of a sentence, we missed out some important parts of that sentence. And I think the patterns that we observe are not necessarily the patterns that are actually there. And again, shortly, we'll be looking at a mechanism for how we can begin to practice looking at other perspectives and making sure that we perceive all the information that is presented to us, and maybe take us away from our own biases and to check and calibrate against what actually is being stated in a particular piece of content or a particular pattern that, you know, might shift us in different paths, basically based on how well we're able to actually think and challenge our own views and challenge our own confirmation biases and challenge outcomes that might benefit us having a better view of making a better decision based on taking time to have that clarity of mind, to think about the patterns and think about the actual information there, and not go on this autopilot journey of that many of us make decisions currently through that automatic subconscious confirmation bias that's going on. So I think, again, that's a key theme of today's session.
Well, I found this image. So the point here is, I just want to add another point, is that it's very natural for us to fill this question mark with arrow pointing right, but it's not necessarily have to be that way. You can use whatever arrow you want and change the course of action. So we have two small reflection exercises for you guys. So the first one is a poll. Here is a scenario. again, it's not right or wrong. It just go through this learning curve together. So you've been managing a project for 6 months and it costs you 500,000 euro. You've received some data that shows you how the project is doing, how the market has changed. You've been asked by a manager to report on it in front of a group of senior executives. So what do you think is more of a priority for you? A, look for data that shows this project is working and that kind of, you know, fitting with your desire for this project to work, or B, look for data that might show a different story, that might require you to admit that this project is not working. So I just like you to put in the, I'm going to launch the poll. Let's see, it's my first time launching the poll. So you can choose. So the first one is A, second one is, I hope you guys have a pen and paper. So this one's going to need a bit of pen and paper, or you can open up a document on your laptop.
So again, just looking at confirmation bias in a bit more detail and just kind of checking with ourselves and being honest with ourselves, I guess. So just looking at these questions, do you agree that you're readily open to influence of confirmation bias? And maybe some of the exercises we've done today, or just having the time to think about it today, will help you with that answer. And again, we wanted to ask you to rate, I guess, in the second question, how often do you think your confirmation bias is affecting your decision making? So again, we wanted you to not select something right in the middle of, you know, we wanted either you to commit to never or all the time, or somewhere, either 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 6, 7, 8, or 9. So you commit to one or the other rather than somewhere in the middle. So again,
the idea is that a lot of us like to sit on the fence. Sometimes I like to sit on the fence. I don't want to choose one or the other, especially when it comes to self-assessment. So we don't want to say that we need to do this or don't need to do that. You know, we're good at this or we're not good at this. So let's not sit on the fence for this one. Let's just think about how much is confirmation bias affecting our decision making. You can do this, you know, for yourself. You don't have to share, but if you want to share later on, you can. And then just your commitment of, would you like to know more about how to manage your confirmation bias? Because most of the time our confirmation bias will lead us astray. And I will share it with you about why later on, about why this confirmation bias is not going to give you the best information. So you can take a few minutes and write down on a piece of pen and paper, and it's just for your own information.
and maybe just when you're thinking about that, just pondering on the third question. And so based on, you know, the discussion so far, and maybe thinking about your own biases, you know, and how you currently think and how you currently make decisions, you know, would you like to improve your decision making by better managing, you know, managing your confirmation bias, and how might you begin to do that, I guess. So these are just some things to ponder and take a break at this stage.
Right, so we're moving to the other key part of the workshop today. Every week, the ReThinking Lab, the way that we designed it is that it's going to focus on an important topic, and this week is on rethinking business after COVID. I'm going to start with a group exercise. I'm going to put you guys into breakout rooms. So the first thing I like you to do is come up in groups, come up with 2 reasons to support this view. COVID affects women far more than men. You just need to come up with 2 reasons to support it. You can come up with more if you have time, and you have a few minutes to do that. Nice, Colin. Can you now, in groups, come up with 2 reasons or more to support this statement? COVID affects men far more than women.
No.
Polls are closed.
I think what I wanted to share in the next couple of minutes was to reinforce, I guess, everything that we've been talking about so far, and about perspectives, and maybe the destructive power of holding a position and defending a position. So I wanted to spend maybe just a few minutes using this visual example to drive home the point of the downsides maybe of holding a position and seeing the benefits of looking at the bigger picture. So what we're sharing here is a diagram of a cylinder, and I'm not sure if people would want to comment on this. What do you actually see in this picture? what is it that, you know, if you look at it with its grayness, with the colors and so on, do you see different shapes, different colors and so on? Anyone want to comment? Does this, anything strike people of this particular picture?
Seamus, I see a pipe leading into a box, and it's like a funnel that could allow a fluid to flow through it.
Okay.
And I see
shape.
something that I want to hammer into the side of the wall.
Okay. So
What
it's
kind of
amazing.
shapes do you guys see?
Like a corner with the
Like a cylinder. type of
cylinders
thing?
in a corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's amazing what we all see. I mean, we're all looking at the same thing, but what appears in our minds is something, you know, different
it's a
for each of
torch.
us. So it's amazing. So there's power in that, and that's, you know, our imagine, you know, you were looking at this picture, this cylinder from the left hand side, let's say, looking at it, and it appears as a circle. So from that perspective, you would see, you know, the reflected from the left hand side of this picture. You're standing at the end of the cylinder on the left hand side. You would see that cylinder as a circle against a grey wall. And that's all you would see. And then from another perspective, if you're standing to the right hand side of the cylinder, you're going to actually see this cylinder appearing as a square on another grey wall. So again, it just shows you that each of these perspectives is a true and honest picture of what that cylinder, how that cylinder looks from a particular perspective. And each of them is true, and each of them is an accurate and absolutely correct picture of that particular cylinder from that specific perspective. So I think the point here is that, you know, both perspectives, and any perspective we hold, whether you're standing on the left hand side or the right hand side, you're seeing a circle or a square, and you're convinced from your perspective, well, yeah, this is a square, this is a circle. But it's not till you step back a little bit and actually see, do you know what, the other perspective is as valid as my perspective. So if I'm seeing this as a circle, you know, there's evidence, or there's validity in checking, well, what are the other perspectives that are accurate and a clear, honest, truthful representation of what I'm seeing. So I think the point really here is that, you know, by taking time to see the bigger picture, we can actually see our own perspective, but also open ourselves up to the truth of that there are other and equally relevant perspectives in any particular situation that we encounter in our lives. So again, that for me was an important way of rethinking, I guess, around the whole theme of what we're talking about today, around looking at the bigger picture and the power of looking at the bigger picture to see other perspectives, because other perspectives may be as valid, or maybe even equally or more valid than the one we're currently looking at, I guess. So was there any comment or any feedback on that?
Right, will we move on, just in the interest of time? I was going to say, right, next part of this is that I want to zoom in a little bit on the subject I think that matters to all of us, which are jobs. So jobs is being affected by COVID in many different ways. I think, like, we can all agree COVID has caused some devastating impact. Some are temporary, hopefully, and some are long lasting. But one thing for sure is that I find it hasn't impacted on everybody equally. So think about jobs that, you know, there are people who have lost their jobs, but others are making a fortune. And there are people who put their lives on the line for the jobs. You know, for example, Eddie mentioned earlier about the healthcare professions that are mainly, you know, female. They put their lives on the line, but I don't think that they are equally or necessarily compensated for the amazing job they're doing. And you'll have people who have to cut back financially, but then there are people just, you know, buying lots of things. And there are also people like us who set up our own business and created jobs for ourselves. But then there are also companies that had no choice but to let more people go. So it's very unfair. And people are saying that, you know, we're waiting for these people who have not been affected to bail out the country. But I think that job, we need to rethink about the jobs. Are jobs really good? Are jobs are important. I'm not saying jobs are not. Jobs are very important for the stability of society and family and even our own sense of individual worthiness. But what kind of jobs? Are we creating jobs just because we wanted to find that sense of worthiness? Are we really creating jobs that the world needs? So if you think about, I feel that not all jobs are good. I don't know about you guys, I might put myself out there. And I see politicians, you know, use creating jobs all the time to win votes. And I see companies using jobs to attract, to do better branding, attract talents. And so we all think jobs are good, but not all jobs are equally good. I see these job titles being created all the time, and where I haven't got a clue what the job is about. So you might have heard something like chief evangelist. I look it up, and for all I know, it's a religious term. I don't know what evangelist is and what they do. And then you can have like chief inspiration officer. Seriously, like, I don't know why you need a chief inspiration officer. What would that person do? So I think we need to look at it from a third party outside view of our own jobs as well. And, you know, jobs are important. We celebrate when we get a new job, but then we blame the job later on. I don't know how many times I blamed my previous jobs of the stress and lack of freedom and even unhappiness in my life. But even kind of made me to think about my own job title. If you think about, like, I call myself human-centric consultant. Does that even make sense? You know, I don't know. I think this is just a time for us to all think about the job that we're creating for ourselves and the jobs that we see. Yeah, so I do have some questions that will prompt our thinking a little bit. So if you think about COVID, has COVID changed how we see jobs? And are we evolving our jobs so it's still going to be relevant after COVID? And I know many jobs have been created to facilitate to help with the challenges that COVID brought, but COVID will be gone. You know, we will either be living with COVID or on the other side of COVID, but will our jobs be still relevant? And are you creating your job or doing your job under the influence of confirmation bias? So think about, you know, we all think our job's important, but this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable. So we all think our jobs is important, but how do you know? You know, so have you verified with anybody? Did anyone tell you, or is that just what you think is important? So are you doing the right thing? And how do you know you're doing the right thing? I have a quick exercise for you guys. So if you go to Minty, so the question is that in the small medium business, which is a fast-paced technology company, what do you think the three important jobs are? Okay, there you go. So in a small medium business, which is a fast-paced technology company, what do you think the three most important jobs are? And while you guys do that, I'm going to log into the minty.com, and then I can show you I think right, the point of this exercise is that we all have a different views of what's important. And I think, you know, a lot of people will settle on the CEO's visionary, founder's visionary. It is very important because I've heard about this book, you know, Don't Listen to Your Customer. I don't know if you have heard about this. And I totally disagree with everything this guy is saying. But he said if he has to talk to someone, he talked to the CEO, like Steve Jobs. But the point is that Steve Jobs hated the idea of iPhone. So if we just listen to Steve Jobs, you will not be able to get an iPhone today. So a lot of the jobs, so Steve has to listen to his team and he has to give in to other people's ideas. I will send, actually, by the way, guys, are you interested in the content that we developed during the workshop? Because I can send this to you guys if you are interested afterwards.
And are you still trying to resolve the same problem, I guess, as you were in the pre-COVID world, as you are now, and what new challenges are you facing? So really around asking some basic questions, or what is the purpose of your job business? Is your job business important? And how do you know? And it's really self-critiquing yourself and really self-checking yourself and challenging yourself, I guess, which is the theme of what we've been talking about all through the session today. And just ask yourself some honest, open questions around where you are in your business and how COVID is having an impact on that, if any impact, as you go forward. So take a few minutes maybe just to think about these questions, and obviously just trying to do this afterwards as well.
Does anyone want to share what they wrote down? Just as an exercise. It's okay if you don't.
I didn't write anything down, but for all of those, most of the things I've been thinking about on it has been the only purpose to my job is to get a salary, and that's basically it.
So you're looking for a job rather? Do you own your own business or?
Yeah, well, I have a company and I contract, but for me, for most of the stuff, when it comes to purpose, if we're talking about an actual purpose other than generating revenue for other companies, there is no purpose.
Great, thank you guys. So I'm going to move on to the final discussion of this workshop, and before we wrap up, so we're going to reduce this to about 5 minutes because we need 5 minutes to wrap everything up. So in groups, can you think about how you will evolve your thinking after this session and your job in the next few weeks? And there's some prompts you can use. So you can think about your current state, assesses, are you evolving your job? Are you evolving your thinking at the moment? And it's just yes and no answer to allow you to assess what kind of state you're in. And then we need information. Information is the key for everything. So where are you collecting information? You're collecting from reliable, variable, and diverse sources to help you. And what kind of people are you talking to? Are you talking to people with different backgrounds, race, age, experience, and interest, or are you just talking to people who are like you? And it's not our fault that we tend to, it is very natural for us to be interested and attracted to people who are like us because they look familiar. But doesn't necessarily that they're gonna, people who don't look familiar to you will not bring the value to your business. So I don't know about you. Do you like to be challenged? I love to be challenged. Is being challenged good or bad? How do we handle when we are being challenged? So these are the things I'm going to post. Seamus, would you mind to paste this into the chat? And
okay.
Or you guys can take a screenshot as well if you want to. And then can I ask Colin just to set up the breakout room again?
Sure, no problem.
Helps. Yeah, and I love this quote from Einstein that we can't solve our problems with the same thinking that we used when we create them. So if you're in the problem solving industry, you've got to take a different perspective and rethink. So we created this checklist that can help you to avoid confirmation bias. Just keep checking, ask yourself, have I checked? Have I talked to people who are not like me? Has anyone challenged my opinion on certain things? And remember what I said to you guys earlier? The purpose of this workshop is to get you to the state of being aware. Now you're aware because you care. Yeah, sorry, Seamus.
And again, my final words, I guess, as well, and thanks for everyone's attention today. But I thought this kind of was really powerful, and it's a quote from Carl Jung, that which we need the most will be found where we least want to look. And for me, it's about challenging ourselves and looking in the places where, back to what we just mentioned there around being uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable isn't a nice place to be sometimes, but that's really where the value is in a lot of our discussions. So it's really about challenging our confirmation biases and having the courage to go there and look there, and then realize the value that is in that process of looking beyond your current view and opening yourself up to other possibilities, I guess. So okay, what we talked about today.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize for running over time, but next week is on sales negotiation and persuasion. I'm quite passionate about this because I think, I would like to help people to create a sales pitch and mindset that using behavior science techniques like framing and loss aversion. I know some people might not be sure about using these tricks, but I think that if you think, what you're doing is good and people are better off with your help, and you're better off that if they get your help, you know, there is no harm in learning how to construct a conversation and negotiation that have a positive outcome for everybody. So